So one question I get a lot is, what is distributive negotiation strategy?
Amateurs.
So it's Thanksgiving and Grandma has baked your absolute favorite apple pie. There's going to be other desserts there, but you want as much apple pie as you can get, and so do your siblings.
Sort of. That was the plan, yeah.
So the question is how to get the biggest piece for yourself. If you're wondering, how do I maximize my own gains in negotiations with my siblings, for pieces of pie, or with my boss, or my colleagues, or my customers, then this video is for you. I'm Bob Bordone. I'm a senior fellow at Harvard Law School. I also am the founder and former director of Harvard Law School's Negotiation and Mediation Clinical Program. So at the end of this video, you're going to learn how to get as much as you can for yourself in a way that is easy to understand, easy to implement, and a lot of fun. I'm going to describe what we mean by distributive negotiation strategy, because when most of us think about negotiation, I think that's what we're really referring to. In a negotiation with a new employer over salary and benefits, you want more, they want to pay you less. That's distributive. So to the degree you're thinking like, yeah, but that's what negotiation is, right? Isn't it all distributive? I want to say like, no, it actually isn't, because every negotiation has some pieces that we call integrative, and we're going to talk about that in a different video. But the integrative parts are the parts where both sides can do better, where we can make that pie bigger by creating value. Okay, so let's take the same example with a twist. Grandma has made the apple pie, and you really, really like apple pie. So do your siblings who are also in for Thanksgiving. But here's the twist. When you actually start to talk to your siblings, you realize that the part of the apple pie that they really, really like is the filling, like they like the apples. The part that you really, really like is the flaky, buttery crust. So this, which could look purely distributive, like who gets the biggest piece of the pie, suddenly isn't purely distributive. Because what you discover is you could have pretty much all of the crust, and they could get pretty much all of the filling. So in negotiation, when we're just trying to divide something up, we call that distributive. But when there's a chance to create some value, like I can get all of the crust and you can get all of the fruit, that's called integrative. And every negotiation has some distributive aspects and some integrative aspects.
I know!
But here we're going to talk about, so in classic distributive negotiation, your goal is to get as much of some fixed amount of value as possible. Now, you don't want to claim so much value, typically, that you ruin the relationship with the other side, or you end up with some result that kind of feels good on paper, but isn't sustainable because when the other side finds out they've been taken to the cleaners, they just refuse to comply.
Wow.
But broadly within the bound of ethics and fairness, there are a few important tips that you should consider when deploying a distributive strategy. First point relates to preparation, and particularly research. Because before you go into that negotiation, you need to do your homework.
I cannot show you everything.
So, for example, if it's a salary negotiation, you need to look into what are the salaries that people with your level of experience and doing a job like yours get. If it's a car negotiation, you want to look for criteria to actually benchmark that. So by criteria, right, I mean looking for what's on Carfax.com or what other dealers might be selling the same car for. By looking for criteria, you're finding a way to both actually be offensive, right? Because you have some reasons for your numbers, but it's also really defensive as well. Because when you know what's typical, you can be protected from getting taken advantage of from someone who might try to kind of come out with extreme numbers and haggle with you.
We had him.
So doing research around norms and standards protects you from being a victim of an arbitrary haggle. Now, if you've done your benchmarking and they throw out, let's say, a lowball number, the thing you want to be doing is always asking, what is this based on? If it's a real lowball, they'll mumble some non-explanation. If, on the other hand, they give you a reasonable explanation, you can then kind of come back with your number. The goal here, right, isn't to get into a haggle with them, but the more we're using some kind of objective standard or benchmark, the more we'll be able to protect ourselves and get some really good outcomes. So let me share an example with you involving the Beatles and their manager, Brian Epstein. So Brian Epstein was an expert in cutting record deals. He wasn't really an expert in cutting movie deals. And when he was negotiating with the production company for the Beatles' first movie, he decided that he was going to go with a really extreme demand in his mind of 7.5% of the movie's profits. And so he makes this proposal to the movie producers, and they immediately say yes. The reason why, it turns out that they were prepared to pay 25% of the profits to the Beatles. So the problem here, of course, is that Brian Epstein didn't actually do any research. He just decided to aim for something that he thought was super high, but it wasn't benchmarked. Now, whenever you're doing benchmarking, it's always the case that there's going to be a range of possible outcomes. It's rare that there's like, this is the exact perfect right number. So once you've done your benchmarking, and this is my second big piece of advice, you want to choose the benchmark that's most in your favor. Why is this the case? Well, there's a whole bunch of research that shows that people with really ambitious goals actually will do better for themselves in distributive part of the negotiation. So I want to really distinguish ambitious goals from goals that are not linked to a benchmark at all. If you have ambitious goals linked to a benchmark, you're going to do better than those who are bottom line oriented. Because the other piece of research shows that if you're really bottom line oriented, like I'll be happy as long as I get a little bit above X, those people usually end up a little bit above X.
That's a stretch.
So when it comes to aiming high, I want to throw in another important consideration. And this is a consideration that is really driven by a whole bunch of research that's been done on gender and negotiation. So this research suggests that when it comes to distribution, men sometimes do better for themselves than women.
Excuse me?
So to be clear, this is not because men are better at benchmarking or better at doing research. It's because men tend to aim high in negotiations, while women sometimes aim to just get barely above their minimum. Now, to be clear, some of this is really understandable because of our current culture and because of something called the backlash effect in negotiation. So the backlash effect is that when women aim high, they sometimes get punished disproportionately as compared to men. Having said that, the more you can ground your ass in research and the more you can frame it in terms of just wanting what is fair and appropriate within the norms of a particular industry and standard, the better you'll be able to do regardless of what gender you are.
Excuse me?
To the degree you're interested in topics like gender and negotiation, distributive negotiation, and integrative negotiation, keep on watching other videos where I'll address these topics and provide more tips to you.